Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to your weekly craft roulette process video. If you're interested in my video from last week, you can check it out on the craft roulette site. I will put a link below because I was on the actual show. But for today, I thought it would be fun to sort of do a more masculine take on Valentine's Day colors because even though I have made a very nice Valentine's Day card for my mom, I have not made one for my dad yet. So I think that that would be fun to do. So one of his favorite themes is the beach. So I thought we would pull out the by the sea paper and coordinating ephemera because there is a good bit of cutting to do. And whenever I have to do a card that has a lot of cutting, I like to lean on ephemera so I'm not doing a whole bunch of like coloring in addition to that. Unless you want a project that takes all day. It's up to you. But we are going to use the magic of editing to get all of our pieces assembled, and then we will be right back. Hey guys, we are back, and we have cut all sorts of pieces. And I grabbed this sentiment. I think it was my favorite. May you always have shells in your pocket and sands beneath your toes, between your toes. And I had a piece of this lovely, this is Petal Pink from Stampin' Up, but it's sort of a lovely Melanie pink. And it worked really well with the seashells, so I thought that's what I would go with. And I will walk you through the pieces that I cut as I am making it. They are in the description box of the video, probably in other videos too, because I really like this particular card. So I'm just going to use a little glue on the ephemera, and I'm just going to mat it so it has a little bit of extra space. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to put this, but because this ephemera is sort of printed on a medium weight cardstock, when I'm doing something like a sentiment, I always like to just back it. And it will also make it a more normal shape to, because it'll make it closer to a square. And I'm just going to cut this out with scissors. There we go. And then I will just trim this up if it looks a little bit strange. Um, it looks like there's some extra. I think I'm just going to sort of fussy cut a little bit around this just to remove a little bit of this excess bulk. 'Cause there's a couple little corners here I would prefer to just take off. I think this, I like how that looks. You can also certainly do this in different ways. Personally, I prefer just fussy cutting it, but this is going to be our sentiment. So let's talk about the card. We start out with a 9.5 by 4.25. So this is an A2, which is one of our parameters. Actually, we haven't talked about craft roulette. I will take a break and do that in one moment while I'm putting this together. And then we just have a standard layering mat. And we have a bunch of other pieces I will walk through as we go. So if you are not familiar with craft roulette, it is the internet's favorite paper crafting challenge. Happens every Friday night, almost, over on the Craft Roulette channel. And info on that is always in the description of these process videos. I kind of assume a lot of the folks who are here are familiar with Craft Roulette already. And I was on Craft Roulette last week, so if you're interested in seeing that show, that is also linked below. And basically, Craft Roulette started during the pandemic, and we just take four parameters and make a card. And the spirit of it is to not go out and buy something new. So it's really about using your stash. So this shell pattern has been in my stash for a while. So the next piece I need is one that is 4 by 1.25, and this is the other piece of pattern paper. The neat thing about this card is you can make the whole thing with two sheets of 6 by 6 and one sheet of 8.5 by 11. But as you see, well, as it comes together, it looks fancier than that. And Amy's Wares was a guest over on Craft Roulette last night, and always nice to see other Midwestern people on Craft Roulette. And with all the pieces, this looks like a more complicated card than it is, but we're basically just going to repeat the same pattern. So you could stop here and you'd have a very nice Z fold, and we could do something like just put our sentiment here and pretty much be good to go. We would need to do a little metallic bling, but we would be done. So if you want to not do a crazy fun fold, here you go. It's a landscape Z fold, and then you could just put a little something, something. Anyway, we're not stopping there, but you could. So with our remaining pieces, I am going to grab them and just sort of get all of our pattern paper done at once if I don't drop it on the floor. So as you notice, there's sort of this glue tab side and then three other panels. What we want to do, or I should say, what these are going to do is this is going to glue down. The second panel will be up. So we want to basically glue our pattern paper to the second panel. So this first box here is 3 1/4 by 5. And then we have a couple score marks in it. We have it at 1.5, 3, and 3.5. And we're just going to grab a coordinating piece of pattern paper. And that is 1 1/4 by 3. Again, I will provide these. The nice thing about this is because it's non-directional, you're not really going to notice if you glue it upside down or right side up, which I think for cards like this is easier because then you don't really worry about it when you're doing the assembly. If you are using directional paper, you basically want to make sure that you consistently have the top being the top. So that's the first one. Second one is going to be exactly the same thing, except the dimensions are a little different. It's 2 1/4 by 4, scored at 2.5. Sorry, scored at 1, 2.5, and 3.5. We will just put that here. I'm very happy. It actually is supposed to warm up next week, so it'll be less wintry in Wisconsin. And then we just have our last piece. I'm trying to sort of keep actually, it doesn't really matter now that I look at it, but I was trying to keep the chevron sort of up and down. This is a 1 1/4 inch square of pattern paper, and the other piece is 1.5 by 3, scored at a half, 2.5, a half, 2, and 2.5. Man, those they're talking about these cards are kind of a mouthful. So let's just get this together and then we can chit chat about decorating. So you want to basically start by putting glue on whatever your one panel is to the side. And what we're going to do is start with the largest one and just sort of get this in the middle. And I find wet glue makes this a lot easier. Also, make sure it folds flat because that's what we're going to do. And then just burnish it a little bit because you're basically gluing uncoated cardstock to uncoated cardstock. It should glue down pretty quickly, um, but I've been wrong in the past on these. Then you just fold this back. If you remember our double box, this is almost the same process. I'm going to put some glue here, and then we're going to fold this whole thing down and wait for the glue to grab. It will grab a little more slowly on the pattern paper than on the cardstock, but if we're lucky, this will all work just perfectly. And if we're not, we can try again. Yeah, so, and on this first box, you probably notice this isn't exact. The uppy downy part here is a little longer. Um, and so that will ensure that this opens up a little nicer. But if you're someone who would rather have all these squares be the same, you can simply put this one down 1/4 inch and it will line up. And then we're going to do the same thing again. And as you go, we just basically want to center this and make sure it can fold down because we eventually want to mail this, probably. And it would be good if it worked. So I just bend this back, put some glue down, if the glue wishes to work today. Sometimes in the winter, it's always kind of a question. I don't know. Do other people have this issue with it being like super dry this time of year? So it's like sometimes the glue is not flowing as nicely as it could. And there we go. So now we have 2 boxes. I'll just do the third one. Exactly the same thing. This one is shorter, obviously, than the others. But we're just going to go and basically, it's hard to see this, but aim it in the center. And this will then Oops, if I do it correctly. This will then grab nicely, and then we can go back here and put glue down to this tab. This last one is always a little bit tricky because at this point the card's got a good bit of bulk on it. Um, and we just do this. You do it correctly when this folds down, you basically have this entire section covered. I have measured this, and this hasn't required additional postage in the past, but if you do wind up putting more additional layers on it, it might. I usually just leave this. We're not going to today, but you can leave this for a while just to dry. And I think I do like the sentiment here. And then what I'm going to do is probably float a bunch of ephemera off of this because you have dimension and this will stand up like this all by itself. This is a great card to just hang little bits of things off of. So here's R. And if you want to make an even more custom look, you can certainly just not use ephemera. But I really like it, especially when I have a pattern paper pad and matching ephemera. This, I think, came out during the summer. There are some summer sentiments in here. But see, then you have this really cool dimensional look where this is actually floating a little bit. This is a really good place to put a character, too. I've done a couple of those in the past. But I think I'm going to stick a big clam here. And then I'll do something on top, I think. I'm just going to put a little glue in the corner. I think when you have a design like this, it's really good to do things that sort of, I don't know, draw your attention to the fact that it's 3D. And then I'm just going to do a little sea star or starfish, whatever you prefer to call them, over here, just to kind of balance the big clam that we put in. And I'm just going to fulfill our blinginess by I think we'll do the rose gold. I think rose gold goes really well with this pattern paper. So I'm just gonna go do a couple little blings. This was in my stash. I believe it was a Stampin' Up! Bling thingy, but you can use anything you have, obviously. Just do 3, I think, like that. And you could do more, but I think I will leave this as is. And this is our craft roulette card. Let's make sure we have everything covered. We have an A2. This does fold down into an A2. Oh, and I didn't mention this. You can put a pad. This is so pale I didn't bother, but you can put a white panel on the back too to write on. And with a card like this, it's kind of hard to write on, so I'll usually write on the panel and then glue it to the card. It's way easier. I don't know why I didn't learn that until very recently, but anyway. So we have our Valentine's Day pink dominant color scheme with just a little pop of blue and sort of just a sandy color generally, but it definitely leans flirty in pink. Not quite as pink as like a kitsch flamingo or a flirty flamingo kind of pink, but if you want a super pink card, you could certainly do that too. Anyway, I digress. So we have our Valentine's Day. February is that many people go south to nicer areas in February. So I thought that the beach was appropriate for that. And then we have our metallic little sequins, just adding us some extra bling. So that is my craft roulette card for this week. I will throw the measurements in the description box below, and I'll link to the original inspiration video. This stands up beautifully, so I think it would be a really nice sort of, it's a homage to Valentine's Day without actually being Valentine's Day kind of card. So anyway, thanks for checking this out, and I will chat with you guys later.